G'day guys, Max here from FM Scout. Today is part 3 of my tactical instruction analysis series. Today I'll be talking about the focus play tactical instructions in Football Manager. When you go to the Football Manager tactics page, you can find the focus play instructions right here. You can instruct your team to focus play either down the left wing, down the right wing, or through the middle. The whole idea is that if you think your left wing is relatively stronger than the opposition right wing, then you try to exploit that advantage by instructing your players to focus play through the left. And if you think your midfielders are relatively stronger than the opposition midfielders, then you tell your players to focus play down the middle. That's the rationale behind these focus play instructions anyway, but do they actually work as intended? Let's find out. Guys, if you want to skip straight to the conclusion of this video, I'll leave a timestamp in the description below, so feel free to use that timestamp to jump straight to the conclusion. First, what I'll do is to analyze the behaviors of players on the field as I give them the different types of focus play instructions. Let me go through the experiment designed for today. So I use the editor to set up a neutral match called Test Cup, played between two teams, Team A and Team B. This match is played at a neutral venue, so there is no home ground advantage to either side of the match. The two teams are filled with clone players, also created using the editor, and these players are 15 in all attributes, which means that the two teams, Team A and Team B, they are perfectly identical in strength. I've added a second manager in the game, so I'm in charge of both teams, Team A and Team B. Being in charge of both teams of the match like this, it allows me to really make sure that I'm in charge of all the variables in the game as tightly as possible. I'll be experimenting with two different tactics, 4-2-3-1 and 4-4-2. In the 4-2-3-1 tactic, I'll be observing the behaviors of the two wingers, the three midfielders, and the two fullbacks. In the 4-4-2 tactic, I'll be observing the behaviors of the two wingers, the two midfielders, and the two fullbacks. What I need first is a control group, so I start by not activating any of these focus play instructions. Then what I do is I proceed to the match and I simulate the entire match manually without touching anything during the match. As you can see here, both teams are using the identical 4-2-3-1 tactic, and I'm in charge of both managers of the match, so I know that there are no variables that are introduced during the match. When the match ends, I go into the match report and I record some statistics that I think are relevant to today's topic. That is the number of pass attempts, cross attempts, the number of shots, the amount of distance covered during the match, and the number of ball touches. My hypothesis is that when the team is instructed to focus play through a certain direction, the players on that side will become more involved in the game, resulting in a higher number of pass attempts, cross attempts, the number of shots, and so on. So after recording all these data into an Excel spreadsheet, what I do is I reload the same match to go back to the start of the match, and I start repeating the exact same match over and over again in order to build up a sample pool. Once I have a big enough sample pool for the control group, what I do next is I go back to the tactics page and I activate this button here, focus play down the left. Then I start repeating the exact same match again and again to build up another sample pool with this focus play down the left instruction active. I also repeat the same process with this instruction here, focus play through the middle, and also when these two instructions are active at the same time, I focus play down the left and down the right. For each of these instructions, I repeated the same match between 15 to 30 times. Half the time I was using the 4-2-3-1 tactic, and the other half the time I was using the 4-4-2 tactic. So let's have a look at the data that I've gathered. I've calculated the average values of the statistics into an Excel table, as you can see here. And I've turned them into these bar graphs, which makes it easier for us to visualize everything. First of all, we have the number of pass attempts made by players during the match. So here, the yellow bars represent the fullbacks, the blue bars represent the wingers, and the green bars represent the midfielders. So with the fullbacks and the wingers, the highest number of pass attempts were observed when the team was focusing on the same side as the player, and the lowest number of pass attempts were observed when the team was focused on the opposite side of the player. I think these are all findings that make sense. How about the midfielders? So for midfielders, the highest number of pass attempts were recorded when no tactical instructions were turned on. When the focus through the middle instruction was active, the number of pass attempts did not go up compared to the control value, which I must say is a little bit odd because, for midfielders, you would expect them to become more involved in the game and, make more passes when you tell your team to focus play through the middle. On the other hand, when the team was instructed to focus play both through the left wing and the right wing, the number of pass attempts for these midfielders went down, which makes sense, I guess, because when the team is playing through the left and right flanks, then of course the midfielders would become less involved in the game. Next, we have the number of ball touches made during the match. Here, the pattern is pretty similar to the number of pass attempts. So with fullbacks and wingers, the highest number of ball touches were recorded when the team was focusing on the same side as the player, and the lowest number of ball touches were recorded when the team was focused on the opposite side as the player. With the midfielders, again, the pattern is similar to the number of pass attempts. The highest number of ball touches were observed when no tactical instruction was turned on, and the number of ball touches went down when the team was focused playing through one or both sides of the pitch. Next, let's have a look at the number of cross attempts. First of all, for fullbacks and midfielders, the number of crosses per match are pretty low, so we won't talk about these ones. Let's just focus on the statistics for the wingers. So the highest number of crosses were observed when the team was focusing on the same side as the winger, and the lowest number of crosses were observed when the team was focusing on the opposite side of the winger. I guess these are all findings that make sense, for a winger. How about the number of shots? Again, guys, for the fullbacks and the midfielders, they're showing negligible number of shots per match. So we won't talk about these ones. We'll just focus on the number of shot attempts made by the wingers. So the highest number of shots were observed in this bar here when there were no technical instructions turned on, and also in this bar here when the team was focusing on the opposite side of the winger. The lowest number of shots were observed when the team was instructed to focus play through the middle. These findings are a little bit odd. It's a bit strange that the highest number of shots were observed in these two bars, because I sort of expected the wingers to make the most number of shots when the team was focusing on the same side as the winger. So yeah, the pattern that we see here for the wingers is a little bit counterintuitive. But you know what? These values, they're all between 2.1 to 2.6, which statistically speaking, it's not a massive difference. So these differences that we see here between these bars, they could just be due to random statistical fluctuations. I think it's fair to say that the number of shots made per match are pretty much constant for wingers, fullbacks, and midfielders, regardless of the tactical instruction given to them. Lastly, we have the amount of distance covered by these players during a match. Guys, the difference between these values are pretty much negligible for each of these positions. The fullbacks have recorded anywhere between 12.2 to 12.5 kilometers per match. The wingers have recorded between 15.4 to 15.8 kilometers per match, and the midfielders have recorded between 14.2 to 14.5 kilometers per match, which are all, small differences. So I guess now we know the focus play instructions do not produce any meaningful difference in terms of the amount of distance covered by a player during a match. Okay, that's enough for statistics. I'll make a summary of all these findings at the end of the video. Now what I'm going to do is to move on to the next part of this video, where I am trying to answer a question that I've always had for a long time playing the Football Manager series. The question is this: if one flank of my team is relatively stronger than the corresponding side of the opposition team, and if I got my team to focus play down that side, will the win rate of my team actually go up? Also, if my midfield is relatively stronger than the opposition midfield, and if I told my team to focus play through the middle, does the win rate of my team actually go up? I will try to answer these questions right now. For this experiment, the setup is slightly different from before. So I'm using the same controlled match between the two clone teams, Team A and Team B, but this time I've changed the attributes of the players. So the players in Team A are 13 in all attributes. The players in Team B are 14 in all attributes, except for the left winger and the left fullback, who are 10 in all attributes. So Team B is stronger than Team A overall, except for the Team B's left flank, where Team B is weaker than Team A. I first simulated the match 200 times to gather a control group. After that, what I did was, for Team A, I turned on the instruction focus play through the right. Remember, Team B's weakness is on the left-hand side, which is Team A's right-hand side. So by telling Team A to focus play down the right-hand side, Team A is exploiting Team B's weakness on that side. I repeated the match 200 times again to gather a sample pool. After that, what I did was I turned on the opposite instruction for Team A, so telling Team A to focus play down the left-hand side. Okay, let's have a look at the results. First, we have the control group, so that's with no tactical instruction turned on. Team A won 22.5% of the time, and Team B won 57% of the time. So Team B won a lot more than Team A, which is expected because Team B is overall stronger than Team A. Next, we have the results when Team A was told to focus play down the right-hand side. Remember, this is when Team A is actively exploiting the area on the pitch where Team B is weak. Here, Team A won 25.5% of the time, which is slightly higher than the control value of 22.5%, and Team B won 56% of the time, which is slightly lower than the control value of 57%. Next is when Team A was instructed to focus play down the left flank. Remember, this is when Team A is deliberately avoiding the area on the pitch where Team B is weak. So here, Team A won 20% of the time, which is slightly lower than the control value of 22.5%, and Team B won 57.5% of the time, which is slightly higher than the control value of 57%. So guys, I think I am seeing a bit of a pattern here. When Team A is exploiting its advantage on its right flank, remember this is the side where Team B is weak, Team A's win rate did go up a little bit. Whereas when Team A gave up its advantage on its right flank, its win rate dipped by a little bit. So I guess these findings mean that the focus play down the left and right instructions are working as intended. Next, let's have a look at a situation where Team B's midfield is weaker than Team A's midfield. So this time, it's the midfielders for Team B who have 10 in all attributes, meaning that Team A's midfield is superior to Team B's midfield. The sample size here is bigger than the previous experiment, so it's 400 matches for the control group, 400 matches when Team A is told to focus play through the middle, and 400 matches when Team A is told to focus on the left and right flanks of the pitch. And let's have a look at the results. So in the control group, Team A won 24.8% of the time, and Team B won 54.3% of the time. So again, you can see Team B is overall stronger than Team A. Next is when Team A is told to focus through the middle. So this is when Team A is actively exploiting its advantage over Team B in the midfield. Here, Team A won 22% of the time, which is a small dip compared to the control group, and Team B won 58.5% of the time, which is an increase compared to the control group. Lastly, this bar here is when Team A is told to focus play through the left and right wings and deliberately not exploiting its advantage in the midfield. Here, Team A won 31% of the time, which is an increase from the control value of 24.8%, and Team B won 48.8% of the time, which is a decrease from the control value of 54.3%. So this is a pretty surprising result. When Team A is exploiting its advantage over Team B in the midfield, its win rate actually went down. But when Team A avoided its advantage in the midfield, its win rate actually went up. Obviously, this is a result that's counterintuitive, and honestly, I'm not too sure how to interpret this. I wanted to confirm these findings in a more realistic game situation, a field test if you like. So what I did was I used the Portuguese Super Cup match between Braga and Sporting CP, which is held at the start of the season in Portugal. So I set up a 4-2-3-1 tactic for Sporting, and for these two players on the left flank, Marcus Edwards and Matthias Bryce, I changed the attributes to 10 in everything. So I've basically sabotaged the left flank for the Sporting team. I simulated the match 200 times with this setting in order to build up a control group. Then I changed the tactical instructions for Braga. I simulated the match 200 times with the focus play down the left instruction turned on, and another 200 matches with the focus play down the right instruction turned on. And these are the results. In the control group, Braga won 42% of the time, and Sporting won 43.5% of the time. So it's a pretty even split between these two teams, despite Sporting having a very weakened left flank. And this is when Braga was instructed to focus play down the right-hand side in order to exploit Sporting's weak left flank. So here Braga won 43% of the time, which is a slight increase compared to the control value. And here is when Braga was instructed to focus play down the left-hand side, and they won 41.5% of the time, which is a slight dip compared to the control value. So here the pattern is pretty similar to what we saw in the previous experiment using Team A and Team B. So when you tell your team to focus play on the side that your opposition is weak, your win rate will go up. And when you tell your team to focus on the opposite side, your win rate will go down, although the difference in the win rate is relatively small. How about when your opposition has a weak midfield? Coming back to the match between Braga and Sporting, so this time I changed the attributes of the three Sporting midfielders to 10 in everything. So now Sporting has a severely weakened midfield. The experimental method is the same as the previous experiment using Team A and Team B, so I'll cut straight to the chase and I'll show you the results right away. So for the control group, Braga won 43.5% of the time. When Braga was instructed to focus play through the middle, exploiting Sporting's weakened midfield, the win rate for Braga went down to 39.5%. When Braga was instructed to focus play through the left and right flanks at the same time, the win rate again went down to 42%. These results are slightly different from the previous experiment that I did using Team A and Team B. Remember, in the previous experiment, the win rate for Team A went up when they were told to focus down the left and right sides, but here the win rate for Braga went down when they were given the same instructions. Since the two experiments are showing conflicting results, unfortunately, I can't make any conclusive remarks about the efficacy of the tactical instruction focus play down the middle. Okay guys, here is the summary of today's findings. 1. When you tell your players to focus play down the left or to the right flanks, the players positioned on that side will become a little bit more involved in the game, resulting in a higher number of passes, ball touches, and the number of crosses made during the match. At the same time, your midfielders will become a little bit less involved in the game, resulting in a less number of passes and ball touches made during the match. 2. The instruction focus play through the middle did not produce any meaningful difference in player behavior for midfielders, wingers, and fullbacks. 3. If one side of your team is superior to the corresponding side of the opposition team, go ahead and exploit that advantage by telling your players to focus play down that side because your win rate will go up by a little bit. 4. On the other hand, the focus play through the middle instruction has questionable efficacy even if your midfielders are superior to the midfielders of the opposition team. Alright guys, that's it for today's video. Do you agree with my findings from today? What do you guys think about the focus play instructions in Football Manager? Leave a comment below to let me know. Guys, I also have my personal YouTube channel called Evidence-Based Football Manager. I regularly upload my Football Manager related videos there, so do check out my own YouTube channel as well. Alright guys, I'll see you all next time.